So you have two components of the Fed. You have the banking end of the Fed and the regulatory agency. The regulatory agency is stacked with executives from the member banks that own the bank. So Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America, etc. So what they do is they stack the regulatory agency with those executives from those banks, and then they don't regulate themselves. They regulate the 99%. They regulate their competition. So Goldman Sachs denies Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns bailout money. They go out of business. They consolidate. So Goldman and JP Morgan can consolidate more market share for themselves. They regulate the 99%. So they are selectively excluded from being regulated. So that's the scam. So many people believe the Fed is a regulatory agency, and the board is supposed to function that way, but it doesn't.
When you say the Fed, are you talking about the National Reserve Bank?
Yes, the Federal Reserve Bank, yes. There's two components of the Federal Reserve. There's the Federal Reserve banking system, which is owned by its shareholder banks, the banks I mentioned before, Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America, and there's about 10 of them. Then there's the federal agency, which is the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. So the Board of Governors is a regulatory agency. It's supposed to regulate the Federal Reserve Bank and, in turn, the banking system. The appointees that get appointed to the Federal Reserve Board are all executives from the member banks. So they don't actually, and then when they are done with their term on the board, they end up going back to work for those same banks again. So there's actually no regulation that takes place.
A lot of people think that the Federal Reserve Bank is a government institution.
Right.
Is it a government institution?
No.
Or a private institution?
It's a private banking cartel. The Federal Reserve Board is a federal agency. It's a regulatory agency. But because they stack it with executives from the banking shareholders of the system, there's no actual regulation that goes on, at least not of the top 1% of Wall Street. So the top firms don't get regulated at all. Everybody else, all their competition gets regulated so that they can never compete.
So you're all for regulation?
Well, I'm for removing the monopoly system. I don't want the 1% of Wall Street or anybody to be able to use the government as a weapon against the 99%. And that's in effect what they do by that top 1% controlling our money. They issue our currency, they control interest rates, all to benefit themselves and to suck wealth out of the 99%.
So you're saying that this should be the responsibility solely of the government?
Congress, absolutely. We elect Congress. The Constitution required that Congress be the one to control the issuance of currency because they're elected by us. If they're not doing their jobs right, and if monetary policy is not working, we can fire them, replace them with more elected people. We have no control over the heads of the banks. We can't fire Jamie Dimon. So allowing them through the Federal Reserve System to control our economy, it's essentially a planned economy. We don't even have a free market.
Well, one of the contention today is that a lot of the elected officials in Washington, D.C. are totally in the pockets of the banking institutions and corporate establishment.
Yeah.
And how are you going to change that? Are you going to vote them out of office and elect new people?
Yes.
Without that kind of...
Yes, but the first step is to end the Federal Reserve System. You see, the Federal Reserve, you've heard, he who has the gold makes the rules. When you take the power of gold out of the hands of the Federal Reserve, you take it away from Wall Street to buy the Congress. They print endless amounts of money that they can then use. They're the daddy of all lobbies. They can use that money they fund the endless wars. They fund all the pet projects of the congressmen, so that's how they're buying influence. You know, it's not just that they're handing them cash to bribe them. They're funding all their projects. So when they need something, that's where they go. So if you remove Wall Street's ability to control the economy and control the wealth, they no longer will be able to buy Congress. I mean, I think we need to clean house too, but the first step is to end that monopoly system.
How long have you been out here, sir?
I've been out here since day one.
Since day one?
Yeah.
And where are you from, sir?
I'm from New York City.
New York City, yeah. I see. Okay, and I guess you're here for the long haul.
I'm here for the long haul. I'm here preaching the message that both the left and the right, the Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street, both can get behind this issue. The Tea Party wants to get money and corruption and all that influence out of, the bailouts and all that out of the government. Well, that's the same thing that the Occupy movement wants. And if we can take back our Congress by ending the money flow into their pockets, then we can have our democratic voice back.
Well, there are those who say that the Tea Party has already been co-opted by the corporate establishment?
Well, a lot of the Tea Party leadership absolutely has been co-opted by the GOP establishment, corporate interests, absolutely. And you know what? The corporate interests are here trying to co-opt this as well. But there is still a grassroots movement alive in both camps, and those grassroots people need to come together and unite, because if they keep us divided, that's how they stay in power.
Well, I see that the mainstream media seem to be reluctant to really deal with the issues that are being articulated here. They seem to be more concerned with the little skirmishes that take place from time to time, or the garbage buildup, so to say. I don't see any garbage around here, and I don't see anyone urinating or any fetal matter anywhere on Wall Street.
Right. Well, they have to concentrate on that because they're owned by the same corporations that are shareholders in the Federal Reserve. So obviously they can't talk about the Federal Reserve. They can't talk about the inherent corruption in the system, except to just frame it in a very left versus right way. So they have to portray the Tea Party as right-wing extremists and portray Occupy Wall Street as left-wing extremists. So the majority of people who fall somewhere in the middle will say, I don't believe in either one of those things. I'm not going to get involved. Or they curse the other side. That Occupy says, oh, those teabaggers are crazy, and the teabaggers say, oh, they're all commies down at Wall Street, so I'm not going to get involved. That's not the reality of what's happening here.
Well, the Wall Street movement has a great responsibility on its shoulder, and the global movement, the global Occupy movement, is really looking to see what's going on in Wall Street with regard to the movement, the Occupy Wall Street movement. And what happens here is going to determine what happens globally, it seems to me.
I agree. This has been happening for many years in other countries. These revolutions that are happening all over the world, and the Tea Party is a part of that. Even though the Tea Party likes to criticize the European movement, oh, these people just want free stuff from their government. When you've lived in a socialist society and you pay 70-80% in taxes, you expect the services your government promises you. When Wall Street comes in and sells derivatives to these governments like Greece, and then it bankrupts Greece, and now Greece can no longer give the people the services that they were already paying for, that's not asking for free stuff. That's asking for the service you're paying for.
So there seems to be an attempt to isolate what is happening in Greece in terms of the movement that is being waged by the people there, to isolate that movement from what is happening here, to treat them as two separate, two different issues.
Divide and conquer. That is the #1 goal of the corporate monopoly through the media, is to keep people divided, because if we ever unite, the 1% knows the game is over. And this is why I'm trying to unite people against this issue. This is the #1 in America. This is the #1 issue, how we can stop them right in their tracks. We remove control over our government by stopping the Federal Reserve Bank. So that's why I am here, spreading that message. And I'm really excited about. Well, I was excited about the Tea Party when they started. They have been, unfortunately, for the most part, co-opted, at least at the leadership level, although there's a lot of Tea Partiers that are getting behind the Occupy movement because they understand this issue and they're agreeing. And, it took them a little longer to wake up because I think they thought Obama was going to fix things, and now they realize he's a Wall Street candidate also.
Well, speaking about President Obama, he made an announcement yesterday that he's going to bring the troops home from Iraq, and all of them will be home by the end of the year. Yeah. What do you think about that? And we're talking about Iraq. We're not talking about Afghanistan and elsewhere.
Well, I think that this is a PR move. He's hurting, and I think that we'll see if he actually brings them home, but I'm not so sure that they're not going to be shipped off to Iran or Africa. So I think that this is just a PR stunt.
So you think that bringing the troops home is just a deployment trick? Redeployment.
2 years ago, he said, I'm taking 50,000 troops out of Iraq, and he did. But he replaced them with private contractors, and then he sent those 50,000 to Afghanistan. So it's all just, sleight of hand. Yeah, I'm going to bring the troops home. We'll see. I mean, I hope that he does. I hope he's telling the truth this time. Maybe he's waking up because of these movements, but I doubt it, because he's really owned by Wall Street, and Wall Street makes a lot of money off of war.
Do you think he's listening to what's happening here?
No, I think that he is, all these comments he makes in the media that alleging that he supports the Occupy movement is really just reverse psychology on the right wing of America, because they will just do the opposite of whatever he says. So if Obama says, I support Occupy Wall Street, the right wing will say, oh, hell no, I can't support that if Obama supports it. So, and that's the same thing that the conservative presidents do. They'll endorse something, and then the liberals in America, oh, well, if George Bush likes it, I can't like it. And it's just that divide and conquer game. Look, the presidents are just puppets. They're puppets on a Wall Street string. doing a dance to keep us distracted. They're punching bags. They replace them every 4 years. When we get done beating up Obama, we'll beat up the next candidate. And the banks always remain in control because he who has the gold makes the rules.
Thank you very much, sir. And what is your name?
My name is Danny Panzella.
Danny, good luck and keep up the good work.
Thank you. If anybody wants to get involved, the website is occupythefed.net.
Repeat that again, please.
Occupythefed.net.